What if Princess Diana warned us about Meghan Markle years before she ever met Harry? No, this isn't a wild conspiracy. This isn't a clickbait fantasy or a fever dream cooked up in the darkest corners of the internet. This is Paul Burrell, Diana's most trusted confidant, her former butler, the man who stood beside her during her loneliest nights and quietest cries, telling us, on record, that Meghan Markle is the woman Diana feared her sons might one day fall for. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. And here's the terrifying part. She didn't just fear Meghan's type, she described her in almost chilling detail. Burrell is not just making noise. He's opening up a vault. A vault filled with unspoken truths, suppressed letters, late-night confessions, and emotional warnings whispered by a mother who feared for her son's future long before the world ever heard of a former American actress from Los Angeles. The man who held Diana's hand as she wept over betrayals now says he watched the same pattern unfold in real time. Only this time, it was orchestrated by someone who knew exactly how to use tragedy as a weapon and charm as a mask. So ask yourself, what would it take for a man who's held on to secrets for decades to finally speak? The answer lies in everything Meghan did to Harry and everything she destroyed between him and William. And yet, what Paul Burrell says next might be even more explosive than the infamous Oprah interview. Because he's not speculating. He's not assuming. He's remembering. And memory, when paired with motive, is deadly. The breaking point. This isn't just about drama. It's about devastation. The British royal family has always operated behind velvet curtains, insulated by protocols, silence, and tradition. But when Harry and Meghan exploded out of the royal firmament, first with their wedding, then their rebellion, and finally their escape, something fundamentally shifted. Lines were drawn. Brothers turned into adversaries. A monarchy built on duty cracked beneath the weight of personal agendas. And now, years later, Paul Burrell is stepping forward not to take sides, but to say, I told you so. Or more accurately, she did. The story you're about to hear isn't pretty. It's not polished. It's raw, messy, unfiltered. Because the truth rarely wears a crown. It bleeds. And while Harry may believe he escaped a gilded cage with Meghan at his side, Burrell's chilling claim is this. He didn't find freedom. He was led into another kind of prison, one designed by manipulation and sealed with emotional control. And the one person who might have been able to stop it? William. But Meghan allegedly made sure that wouldn't happen. So how did it all begin? It didn't start with a scandal. It started with a warning. The prophecy from a princess. Let's go back to a time before the Netflix deals, before the California mansions, before the royal fallout that gripped the world. Back when Harry and William were just two boys trying to grow up under the shadow of a mother whose life was turned into a public spectacle, and then taken from them in the most brutal way possible. According to Burrell, Diana didn't just worry about their future titles. She worried about their hearts. She once told Paul, with trembling hands and glassy eyes, that her greatest fear was not the press, not the crown, not even her own safety, but the women her sons would one day love. Because love, she said, would be their weakness, the very thing that would expose them, break them, or be used to control them. She said to me, Burrell recounted in a recent bombshell interview, watch out for the ones who know how to cry on cue, the ones who weaponize pain, the ones who turn victimhood into power. It sounds like a riddle no one could solve at the time. But Paul did, years later, watching Harry spiral into isolation, watching William retreat into formality, watching Meghan Markle step into the role of royal disruptor, and then, just as quickly, royal martyr. And that's when it hit him. Diana saw this coming. Why now? Why did Burrell wait until now to come forward? Why not say something sooner, when the drama was unfolding in real time? Because, according to him, it wasn't just about timing. It was about pain. I couldn't speak until I saw the final fracture, he said. Until I knew there was no going back. And that fracture, he claims, happened not on TV, not on Oprah's couch, but behind closed doors. When Harry and William had one final chance to reconnect. And Meghan allegedly made sure it didn't happen. According to insiders, Burrell learned about a conversation that could have changed everything. A private meeting. A reconciliation moment that had been quietly arranged during a royal family gathering. Harry was willing. William was cautious. But they were both present. Until Meghan intervened. She told Harry something that night. Burrell said, something that turned his heart to stone. He wouldn't say what, not yet. But he promised it would come out. Because he has the messages. He has the notes. He has the memories. And now, finally, he's ready to share them. This isn't about hate. It's about history. Let's be clear. This story isn't about dragging Meghan Markle through the mud for entertainment. It's about examining the patterns of power, pain, and manipulation that have haunted the royal family for generations. It's about uncovering a cycle that Diana tried to break. And watching helplessly as it repeats itself through her youngest son. It's about asking, what happens when someone walks into the royal family not to serve it, but to survive it at any cost? Burrell claims Meghan came in not to be shaped by the monarchy, but to bend it to her will. And when she couldn't, she walked out, with Harry in hand, and the family left in pieces. But it didn't stop there. According to Burrell, Meghan's playbook wasn't just about escape. It was about narrative, victimhood, control, image, and perhaps most damning of all, it was about replacing Diana. Think about it. The carefully curated photos, the humanitarian visits, the interviews laced with emotional language, the consistent framing of the media as an enemy, the comparisons, the parallels. Paul Burrell says he's watched this all before, but the first time, it was real. It was Diana fighting to protect herself. This time, he claims, it was performative, calculated, chilling. The wedge between brothers. Of all the heartbreaking turns in this saga, none is more devastating than the severed bond between William and Harry. They were more than brothers. They were each other's last connection to their mother. And now, they're strangers. According to Burrell, Meghan knew this bond was dangerous to her influence. So he claims she chipped away at it. Slowly, gently, persuasively. A subtle comment here. A mistranslated message there. Emotional distance disguised as space. And when the final break happened, it didn't come with shouting. It came with silence. Harry stopped calling. William stopped reaching out. And Meghan stood in the center of it all, untouched, unwavering, and in control. Or so Burrell believes. And when he watched Harry accuse the palace of racism, of coldness, of cruelty, he wept. Not because he didn't believe Harry had pain, but because he knew how that pain had been fed. And by whom? This is just the beginning. You think you've heard it all? Think again. Because Burrell isn't done. Not by a long shot. In the chapters ahead, you'll hear what Meghan allegedly said during her first private meeting with Paul Burrell, and how it sent chills down his spine. You'll discover what Diana really wrote in her last private letter to William, a letter Burrell says was never meant to be seen by the public. You'll hear about a shocking voicemail, a medium's strange message, and the damning comparison between Meghan's interviews and Diana's final cries for help. You'll walk through the manipulation blueprint, the emotional tactics used to isolate, dominate, and alienate. And you'll witness the breakdown of the royal family, from someone who saw it coming decades before it happened. But most of all, you'll be forced to ask yourself one question. What if Diana saw this coming? And what if Harry and William are just playing out the very tragedy their mother died trying to prevent? What comes next may be the most painful truth of all, because the next chapter starts with a diary, one that was never meant to be found, and what's inside will shake you to your core. What if the key to understanding everything, the fractured brothers, Meghan's rise, the royal implosion, was hidden in a forgotten diary all along? Not an official record, not a memoir for the press, but a handwritten, raw, emotional journal kept by the one man who was there for every whisper, every late-night cry, every warning from Diana herself. Paul Burrell. And inside that journal, the truth no one wanted out. Until now. Beginning, the keeper of secrets. Paul Burrell never intended to speak. For years, he held his tongue. Not because he didn't have stories to tell, but because he believed in loyalty. Loyalty to Diana. Loyalty to her sons. Loyalty to the institution that once nearly destroyed them all. But even the strongest loyalty has a limit. And Burrell reached his the day he watched Prince Harry, in a crisp suit and a haunted expression, accuse his own brother, the future king, of abandonment. It was during that now infamous interview. You know the one. The moment where the entire world leaned in and held its breath, as Harry told Oprah he felt trapped and that his family offered him no help. Paul Burrell, sitting alone in his modest home in the north of England, stared at the screen in disbelief. Because he remembered something Harry didn't. A moment from years before, when Diana had said, "My sons will never be apart, unless someone wedges between them." He didn't want to believe what he was thinking, but the signs were too clear, too familiar. And so, for the first time in years, he opened the old chest beneath his bed. Inside, wrapped in yellowing silk and tied with an old royal ribbon, was the diary. His diary, not meant for eyes, not meant for publication, just truth, emotion, memory. And it began with a warning. Middle, Diana's fears in her own words. The first entry that stopped Burrell cold was dated July 23, 1996. Only a few weeks before Diana's final divorce from Prince Charles was finalized. She'd been fragile that night, but sharp, unusually sharp. "Paul," she said softly, sitting by her candlelit window, "promise me you'll protect them from women who want to wear their wounds like tiaras." He remembered writing those exact words because they sounded poetic at the time, but now they sounded prophetic. Diana wasn't talking about fairy tales. She was talking about manipulation. She described a kind of woman she feared Harry, especially, would fall for. The type who understands pain, but fakes it better than anyone, she had said. The type who knows how to cry when cameras are near. The type who tells him, "I understand you," before she's even met the real him. Burrell wrote all of it down, not because he thought it would one day matter, but because it haunted him. And now, all these years later, he looked at those pages and saw the past colliding with the present. Diana didn't name Meghan. She couldn't have, but her words painted a silhouette. And that silhouette matched everything Burrell saw unfolding with Harry and Meghan. So here's the question. Did Diana see something the world refused to? Did she recognize a pattern in people that we ignored until it was too late? Or was she simply projecting her own pain onto a future she feared? Either way, her fears were real. And Burrell's diary recorded every one of them. The diary entry that made him cry. There was one entry, one that stopped Burrell cold. It was dated only 5 months before Diana's tragic death. Burrell had written, "Tonight, she wept. Not for herself, not for Charles, but for the boys." She said, "What if someone comes along and plays the victim better than me? What if they love Harry only for the platform I gave him? What if my pain becomes someone else's brand?" He had forgotten those words. But now, watching Meghan build a media empire around narratives of pain, racism, and isolation, they came flooding back. He wasn't angry. Not at first. He was heartbroken. Because for all the flaws Diana had, one thing was undeniable. Her love for her sons was pure. And the idea that someone could hijack that legacy, repackage it, and sell it to the highest bidder, that broke him. But the diary held more than just warnings. Burrell had written about William, too. About how Diana believed William would one day be a rock. The stable one. The one who would keep Harry grounded. But even back then, she saw a danger. "Harry is fire," she told Burrell. "Passionate. Emotional. He needs someone who fans his flame in the right direction, not someone who sets it ablaze." Those words, they haunted Paul. Because now, looking at the headlines, the interviews, the private jet rides, the lawsuits, the Netflix deal, it felt like the blaze had already consumed him. And the worst part? William couldn't stop it. The diary's turning point. Meghan enters the scene. Here's where things get even stranger. In one of the later entries, dated just after Harry's engagement to Meghan was announced, Burrell writes, "Watch the engagement interview. Meghan is charming. Almost too much. She speaks as if she's studied every royal line, every Diana mannerism. Even Harry seems rehearsed, as if he's repeating a script she wrote. It was just a hunch, but it unsettled him." Burrell didn't speak out then because he didn't want to be labeled jealous or bitter. He'd already taken enough beatings from the media over the years. But privately, in his diary, he wrote down everything. Every look, every public performance, every PR stunt that felt too carefully calculated. And over time, it painted a picture, a pattern, one that mirrored Diana, but with one key difference. Diana was fighting the institution. Meghan, he believed, was fighting for control of the narrative. And in doing so, she wasn't just pulling Harry away from the palace. She was pulling him away from William. The entry that was almost burned. There was one page in the diary that Burrell considered destroying, because it terrified him. It read, "Received a call today from a source I trust inside the household. They say Meghan told Harry, 'If you can't choose me over him, you're not the man I thought you were.'" She meant William. Paul had written that note in shaky handwriting, not because he doubted it, but because it was the moment he realized Diana's warning had come true. And he didn't want it to be. He wanted to believe Meghan was good, that she was misunderstood, that the press was unfair, as they had been with Diana. But this line, "If you can't choose me over him,"